Welcome to the season premiere of Preps Plus Extra. How you doing? I'm Mark Stewart, prep editor of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Joining me for the third season, JR Radcliffe, sports editor of Now Newspapers. How you doing this week?
Doing great. We're almost done with summer, which I'm unhappy about, but I know a lot of people are excited about football. It's that time of year.
Yeah, you got that nice crisp fall weather. I kind of enjoy that.
Yeah.
Enjoy that. So we're heading into week 3 of the football season. But the biggest news of the year so far happened in week 2. Homestead and Arrowhead got together in a battle of, probably the top 2 programs in the area, and you could argue maybe the top 2 programs in the state. They're obviously in that discussion. Homestead won that game 13-7. Somewhat of an upset given
Definitely.
everyone what everyone thought of Arrowhead had coming back versus what Homestead had coming back. But one, I guess, I don't know, I'll ask the obvious, but surprised there at all?
I am surprised. I really thought Arrowhead, they've got 7 kids who have either been offered or accepted Division I scholarships, so we kind of, obviously Homestead's had a lot of success, reigning Division II state champion. There's an expectation that comes with their program, but they did lose a lot off that team last year. They really shouldn't have been able to compete with Arrowhead, which brought a ton back and looked like an absolute monster. And not only did they compete with them, but they obviously beat them. They score in the final 2 minutes to take the lead, 13-7, and hold on for the win. So I was surprised. I thought Homestead could keep it close. I thought that was probably the best that they could maybe hope for, and I was dead wrong.
Yeah, that's one of those games that I kind of thought the same way as you did, that this was going to be one of those games that that was Arrowhead's to win. And thinking back, it was one of those times where you wish you could get into Dave Keel's head and just wonder what what he was thinking, not in a negative sense, but I guess my thought is when he sets up this game last November or late in the season, whenever he did it late last year, he knew he had a senior team, and you had to think, okay, he's got all these new guys. Why is he doing this game now when maybe it could turn out bad for his program? But then it got me thinking, well, maybe he thinks he's got something he just doesn't want to tell us about.
Yeah, and they're going to play again next year, so the series will continue. And I'm sure at the time he didn't think that his team was going to go on and win the D2 state title, because Waunakee was still undefeated at that point, still looking like the dominant program in the state. Homestead obviously rose at the end of the year last year and came away with that 14-0 win at Camp Randall, and ended up being this awesome cosmic confluence of events to have 2 reigning state champs. They make the schedule long before the previous season is over, so there's no way they could have known that going in, and it just worked out.
Yeah. So they knocked off Waunakee, and then they get Arrowhead. I guess they can say, arguably, hey, we're the top program. We're the top dogs
absolutely.
These days, so.
Yeah, you bet they can.
But that kind of leads to another question where programs like Homestead, they can lose, the bulk of their offensive and defensive backfields, all state linemen on both sides of the ball, yet, they can still be, they can still come back the next year and knock off a team like Arrowhead that has so much established talent. And, obviously that says a lot about what, kind of program they have there. And so much goes into what goes into building a program. But, as you think about that, what are some of the really key aspects in your mind in terms of, that program building?
I think if every coach were honest with themselves, they put talent at the top of the list. You got to have the kids who can make the plays, and I don't think that's a secret. The question is, how do you get the talent or keep the talent and have it filter constantly through your system? Really, you see coaches who've been around for a long time. Dave Keel at Homestead is a good example. When you've got that stability at the top, that helps in so many ways. And not just Keel, but Fritz Rauch, the defensive coordinator, has been there a long time as well. They have a few coaches who've been there to sort of carry that torch and make sure there's that consistency from year to year. Because another big thing is the youth program. And in Homestead, we're talking about the Mequon-Thiensville Cardinals. With Arrowhead, you're talking about the Lake Country Chiefs. When you've got a youth program that's been going for as long as those have, the terminology is the same, the scheme, the philosophy is the same as the varsity program. So they filter upward, and they get to high school as a 9th or 10th grader, and they've been doing this stuff since they were a 5th or 6th grader. So they have a real obviously they're going to be in a good spot to begin with. It doesn't necessarily mean that high school team is going to be awesome, but to sustain success, you need to have that constant machine moving. And I think a lot of people will point to youth programs as where that comes from.
Yeah, and you touched on the stability, and Dave Keel, I think this is got to be his he's been there at least 25 years, probably more. But I mean, he was there for a long time before they really even started making a lot of noise in the in the playoffs. So I mean, it does kind of take a while to kind of, one step you become good, and then it takes a while sometime to take those next steps and start making those deeper runs in the playoffs. One thing that you touched on, as far as the youth programs, kind of goes to what I think is every successful or most successful high school programs have is that strong community backing, and that kind of feeds into the success of or the development of those youth programs. But I think most of these areas where you have a successful football program, you got to have a lot of community involvement, because you just need so many people, kids, parents, volunteers, or whatever, to make a successful program go. And I think that's one thing that if you look around town in a lot of the successful programs, you'll see that not only do they have the youth program, but they have a lot of community support that kind of feeds off each other.
I think there's two parts to that, what we call the culture of winning, so to speak. You look at the number of kids for Homestead High School. They're not in school yet, and they're just a huge student section at that game against Arrowhead. That really is representative of how the town feels about that football team, how the school feels about the football team. There's just that environment where football is an important thing. Your last Friday before you head back to school and you're at a football game, that just shows where the priorities are there. And that's a great thing, and there are towns that really embrace their football. I don't think it's unfair to say maybe sort of the seedier aspect, or not the seedier, but the part people may not want to talk about is there's a correlation between affluence in certain communities and the success of their football program. Certainly you can't say the affluent communities have good football teams and the more blue-collar ones struggle. That's not really, you can't draw that line, black and white. But when we get out to Waukesha County, that's where you see a lot of programs that have had a lot of success. They have the money and the resources to put towards youth programs, to put towards off-season training programs, whatever it is, and then their athletes are able to, they have the resources to continue on with the sport, to follow it, to play with their teammates throughout their formative years, and they get up there and they're ready to go.
Yeah, that's an interesting. We could talk about this for a while, because that brought some other thoughts in my head. But we're going to shift gears here, because as we know that we're heading into week 3, and really those first 2 weeks of the season, a lot of non-conference games. We're starting to get into conference play. My question for you is, what do you know now that maybe you didn't know 2 weeks ago that's maybe really impressed you?
The Southeast is interesting to me, the Southeast Conference. I think going into the year it was going to be Oak Creek and Franklin, kind of just in my mind, the 2-horse race. Oak Creek lost their first game of the year against Menominee Falls, but still should be up in that conversation. Franklin then got beat pretty badly in week 2 by Greendale. Maybe that conference isn't as good as we thought. I still think Racine Horlick, who's 0-2, is a very capable team with Ricky Neal Jr., one of the most dynamic playmakers in the area. I think they're still a very dangerous team. Interested to see where that Kenosha Indian Trail team ends up. Their second-year varsity program. They've been building, sort of funneling from the ground up. They've got 2 wins on their belt, under their cap right now. They beat Plymouth, a very good Division III team, always among the state's best programs, going to the playoffs undefeated all the time. Beat them pretty handily in week 1, and then beat a Chicago team that was supposedly ranked in the top 5 in the Chicagoland area. I don't know what that means, but I know that Indian Trail, I kind of thought maybe they're still building towards something. Right. Maybe they're there. Maybe they're going to be a major contender for that title. Yeah,
that's going to be interesting. They have a big game this week against Oak Creek, which will really give us an idea of where they stand as a program. The one team, and I wouldn't say this is a surprise, because we knew Greendale had a nice, a nice nucleus coming back. But I guess I'm impressed by how good they've been so far. I mean, and they obviously, as you know, that they beat up on Franklin. They had a nice win over Cedarburg, which is another quality program. Yep. And just these first couple weeks, I've just been really impressed by what they've been doing. And now they start they jump into the conference season, and you don't want to jinx anybody, but they're going to be tough to beat.
It's another program with a coach who's been there a while, Rob Stoltz. He's always got them clicking. He's got that offense working. They can pass, they can run, and now they might very well be one of the best teams in all the state and could contend seriously for that D3 or D2 crown, depending on where they end up. Big battle with Pewaukee in 2 weeks in the Woodland West, which is a really strong conference this year. Pewaukee, we both saw them beat Wisconsin Lutheran in week 2, which was, I think we could consider that an upset, but it was a pretty handy win for Pewaukee. They beat them pretty handily. Yeah. And in 2 weeks, I think September 13th, when Pewaukee meets Greendale, that's going to be a big one.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that game in the future. But that's going to wrap it up for the season premiere of Preps Plus Extra. Till next time, I'm Mark Stewart. That's JR Radcliffe. And for more Preps Plus action, watch me and Lance Allen every Sunday night on today's TMJ4 at 11 p.m. Take care.